The Hay House shut down in Kingsport with very little explanation. An investigative report released today shows the facility closed in part because of problems with the employment of the director's son-in-law.
Kevin Cassington looked through a report released by the state controller of the Treasury and learned what that investigation uncovered. Sarah and Josh, the comptroller's office released a report detailing the results of the investigation into allegations of malfeasance at the Hay House. Now, investigators found the director's son-in-law, who was hired at the Hay House in 2014, was convicted of a felony. And in 2000, now he was a T-Dot corrections officer and smuggled a knife to an inmate and paid or promised to pay that inmate to harm another. Now, the son-in-law pleaded guilty to solicitation of attempted second-degree murder. Then in 2019, the Hay House director's son-in-law was indicted on 5 counts of theft. According to the report, in 2018, the son-in-law was arrested for theft while purchasing supplies for the Hay House. An offender living at the facility was with him. The Hay House continued to pay the director's son-in-law until he was fired in June 2018. The report states it's unclear if his timesheets between his arrest and termination were accurate. Other report findings included that a registered sex offender was employed at the Hay House for about 2 months. You can read the entire report released by the comptroller's office right now on WJHL.com.
Kingsport state investigators have issued a report on the John R. Hay House of Sullivan County, finding that the nonprofit organization made questionable salary payments to an employee and employed convicted felons, including a registered sex offender, for nearly 2 months. The investigation into allegations of malfeasance was done by the Tennessee Office of the Comptroller of the Treasury in conjunction with the Tennessee Department of Corrections, TDOC, and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. The investigation began after the TDOC identified and reported fiscal and contractual issues at the Hay House and was limited to records from July 2017 through January 2019. Founded in 1981, the Hay House 427E Sullivan St. provided aid and assistance to people with criminal records. It ceased operations in June 2019. The nonprofit was funded primarily through an annual TDOC grant, along with some funding from the United Way and payments by residents for room and board. The Hay House was governed by a 9-member board of directors, which appointed Chuck Walsh as its director, along with other employees responsible for the day-to-day operations. Employing a convicted felon. Investigators found that the Hay House employed Walsh's son-in-law, Eric Monday, who was a convicted felon. According to the report, Monday began working at the Hay House in December 1997 as a transportation officer until March 2000, when he was hired by TDOC as a corrections officer. In July 2000, TDOC fired Monday after he admitted to smuggling a knife to an inmate and then promising to pay that inmate to harm another inmate. Monday subsequently pleaded guilty to attempted second-degree murder. However, in February 2014, the investigative report states Hay House again employed Monday as a case officer, eventually rising to the rank of facility manager. Questionable compensation. According to the report, Monday was indicted for theft while working at Hay House and received questionable compensation. In January 2019, Monday was indicted on 5 counts of theft of $1,000 or less. The matter is currently pending in Sullivan County. The indictment rose from several incidents in February and March 2018, when Monday and an offender at Hay House allegedly took items from a Kingsport store. These thefts took place when Monday was purchasing supplies for Hay House. Investigators say Hay House continued to pay Monday after he was arrested in April 2018 and until he was terminated in June 2018 for lack of work due to budget cuts. Since he was terminated for lack of work, Monday was able to file for unemployment in July 2018. Investigators say there's more than $7,100 in questionable payments to Monday from April 2018 until June 2018. Some of his timesheets include time off for vacation and excused leave, neither of which is allowed under the policy of Hay House. Registered sex offender. Investigators found Hay House employed a registered sex offender as a cook from August 2018 until October 2018. Neither the TDOC grant that funds the nonprofit organization or Hay House policy specifically states that employees must pass a background check. However, investigators say it should be reasonably expected that the purpose of a background check would be to determine that people who supervise those with criminal records do not have criminal records of their own. The report further lists 2 internal control and compliance deficiencies that TDOC did not detect Hay House employed convicted felons, and that TDOC did not detect an employee accrued and used leave in violation of Hay House policy. Sullivan County District Attorney Barry Staubus said he intends to submit the matter to the grand jury later this month to determine if there was any criminal activity or just administrative problems with the Hay House.
February 4, 2020. Tennessee Department of Correction. Commissioner Tony Parker. 326th Avenue North, Nashville, TN 37243. Commissioner Parker. The Office of the Comptroller of the Treasury conducted an investigation of selected records of the John R. Hay House, Inc., and the results are presented herein. Copies of this report are being forwarded to Governor Bill Lee, the State Attorney General, the District Attorney General of the 2. Andy Judicial District, certain state legislators, and various other interested parties. A copy is available for public inspection in our office and may be viewed at http://www.comptroller.tn.gov/ia/. Sincerely, Justin P. Wilson, Comptroller of the Treasury. Investigative Report. John R. Hay House, Inc. The Office of the Comptroller of the Treasury, in conjunction with the Tennessee Department of Correction TDOC and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation TBI, investigated allegations of malfeasance related to John R. Hay House, Inc. The investigation was initiated after TDOC officials identified and reported fiscal and contractual issues. This investigation was limited to selected records for the period July 1, 2017 through January 25, 2019. The results of the investigation were communicated with the Office of the District Attorney General of the 2nd Judicial District. Background. The John R. Hay House, Inc., JRHHH, located in Sullivan County, was founded on August 14, 1981, for the purpose of providing aid and assistance to persons with criminal records who reside in the Upper East Tennessee area. JRHH ceased operations on June 30, 2019, after the joint investigation provided community support through the following services: substance abuse treatment, housing, food, clothing, transportation, recreation, legal services, educational and employment services, financial and personal counseling, assistance in obtaining mental and physical health treatment services, and community placement assistance. JRH was a 501c3 nonprofit public benefit corporation funded primarily through an annual TDOC Community Correction and Substance Abuse Treatment Services Grant TDOC grant awarded over a 2-year period. JRHH also received funding from residents for room and board, as well as financial support from the United Way and other public donations. JRHH was governed by a 9-member board, which appointed a director and other officers who were responsible for conducting JRHH's day-to-day operations. The TDOC grant contract for the period provided that evaluation and monitoring of all grant-funded programs and financial expenditures, including on-site visits by TDOC staff and/or their designees, should be carried out in keeping with monitoring instruments created by the TDOC. Results of investigation. JRHH employed the director's son-in-law, a convicted felon. JRHH and TDOC records indicate that the JRHH director's son-in-law began working for JRHH in December 1997. The son-in-law worked at JRHH as a transportation officer until March 1, 2000, when he was hired by TDOC as a corrections officer. On July 27, 2000, TDOC terminated the director's son-in-law due to his admission of smuggling a knife to an inmate and either paying or promising to pay the inmate to harm another inmate. These actions led to his termination and criminal charges. The director's son-in-law subsequently pled guilty to attempted second-degree murder solicitation, a Class C felony. On February 17, 2014, JRHH again employed the son-in-law, this time as a case officer, and he eventually rose to become the JRHH facilities manager. In each of these positions, the director's son-in-law had supervisory responsibilities over inmates and was paid with TDOC grant funds during the period of our investigation. According to the signed TDOC grant contract for fiscal years 2018 to 2019, the grantee JRHH will have background checks performed by the vendor designated by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to perform background checks on all staff involved in offender supervision. In addition, JRH policy states that all potential employees will have a background check by an approved vendor prior to employment, and all employees are required to have a yearly background check. Although the TDOC grant contract and JRHH policies do not specifically state employees must pass the ordered background checks, it should reasonably be expected that the purpose of background checks is to ensure employees involved with supervising and rehabilitating persons with criminal records do not have criminal records themselves. The director's son-in-law's JRHH personnel files included background check documentation. However, investigators could not determine the completeness of the background checks. The background check documents were questionable because they did not document the director's son-in-law's prior criminal history. The most recent background check documentation included registration and a bill for services performed by a TBI-approved background check vendor on November 13, 2017, but the results of the background check were not included. Because the JRHH facilities manager is the director's son-in-law, it is likely the director was aware of his son-in-law's criminal history, and that he knew a background check would reflect a criminal charge. JRH employing the director's son-in-law may have put the safety of JRHH offenders and other employees at risk. The JRH director's son-in-law was indicted for theft while working for JRHHH and received questionable compensation. On January 23, 2019, the JRHH director's son-in-law was indicted on 5 counts of theft of $1,000 or less. The indictment arose from several incidents in February and March 2018, when the director's son-in-law and an offender housed at JRHHH allegedly took items from a Kingsport, Tennessee store without purchase or permission. These acts occurred while the director's son-in-law was purchasing supplies for JRHH. The director's son-in-law was arrested for the alleged thefts on April 19, 2018, and was released later that day. Police reports document the JRH director was present when his son-in-law surrendered to police. JRH continued to pay the director's son-in-law after his initial arrest until he was terminated on June 29, 2018, for a lack of work due to budget positions cuts. Since the director's son-in-law was officially terminated for a lack of work, he was able to file for unemployment compensation on July 1, 2018, according to the TDOC grant contract. The grantee JRH will notify the state in writing within no more than 48 hours when either a grantee staff member involved in the grantee's financial operations or a non-grantee staff member with fiduciary responsibility leaves grantee employment either voluntarily or involuntarily. If there are allegations of financial impropriety on the part of the departing employee, the reason must be included in the written notice. JRHH did not notify the TDOC of the arrest or eventual termination of the director's son-in-law. According to board minutes and communications, the JRHH board authorized the continued employment of the director's son-in-law until his related court appearance. However, it is unclear why the JRH director did not communicate the arrest and eventual termination to the TDOC. It is also unclear if timesheets for the director's son-in-law between the date of his arrest and the date of his termination reflect actual hours worked. Several of the director's son-in-law's timesheets during this period included vacation and excused leave. JRHH policy states, annual leave is not paid or accrued by Hay House, Inc. JRHH policy does not authorize any other types of leave, and board minutes do not reflect that the son-in-law's leave was authorized by the board. It also appears that individuals other than the director's son-in-law signed his name on timesheets during this period. The JRHH director signed and approved all but one of his son-in-law's timesheets. The following table summarizes questionable compensation received by the son-in-law between the date of his arrest and the date of his termination. Pay period payroll check date questionable gross compensation. April 9th, 2018, April 22nd, 2018, April 25th, 2018, $235.20. April 23rd, 2018, May 6th, 2018, May 9th, 2018, $1,176.00. May 7th, 2018, May 20th, 2018, May 23rd, 2018, $1,176.00. May 21, 2018, June 3, 2018, June 6, 2018, $1,176.00. Bonus June 6, 2018, $1,000.00. June 4, 2018, June 17, 2018, June 20, 2018, $1,176.00. June 18, 2018, June 28, 2018, July 3, 2018, $1,176.00. Total questionable gross compensation $7,115.20. For timesheets, the director's son-in-law worked April 19th and April 20th, which totaled $235.20 in gross compensation. The son-in-law was arrested on April 19th and released later that day. For timesheets, the director's son-in-law used 56 hours vacation leave and 24 hours excused leave. Vacation leave and excused leave are not authorized per JRHH policy. The son-in-law's gross compensation for leave taken was $1,176. For timesheets, the director's son-in-law took 40 hours vacation leave. Vacation leave is not authorized per JRH policy. The son-in-law's gross compensation for leave taken was $588. JRHH employed a registered sex offender as a cook from August 9, 2018 to October 3, 2018. According to the signed TDOC grant contract for fiscal years 2018 to 2019, JRH was required to perform background checks on all staff involved in offender supervision. JRH policy also mandated background checks for all potential employees before employment and annually thereafter. While the policies did not explicitly require employees to pass these checks, the intent was to ensure staff involved in supervising and rehabilitating offenders did not have criminal records themselves. JRH management could not provide the sex offender's personnel file, leaving investigators unable to determine his responsibilities or if a background check was conducted. However, it was determined that JRHH paid the sex offender employee $2,425.50 in gross compensation from sources other than the TDOC grant. Although not paid from the TDOC grant, as a JRH employee he likely had regular interactions with and supervisory roles over TDOC offenders. This hiring decision may have jeopardized the safety of JRHH offenders and other employees. Internal control and compliance deficiencies. The investigation revealed deficiencies in internal control and compliance, which contributed to the investigative findings of this report. The noted deficiencies include: Deficiency 1, the TDOC did not detect that JRH employed convicted felons. The TDOC did not detect that JRH employed convicted felons. The TDOC did not detect through its grant evaluation and monitoring procedures that JRHH employed 2 convicted felons until after the employees were terminated. The JRH director's son-in-law, a former TDOC employee convicted of attempted second-degree murder solicitation of an inmate while working for TDOC, was employed by JRHH from February 17, 2014 through June 29, 2018. In addition, a registered sex offender was employed by JRHH from August 9, 2018 through October 3, 2018. This deficiency directly resulted in the investigative findings of this report and may have put the safety of JRHH offenders and other employees at risk. Deficiency 2, the TDOC did not detect that JRH management employees accrued and used leave in violation of JRH policy. The TDOC did not detect through its grant evaluation and monitoring procedures that JRHH management employees accrued and used leave in violation of JRHH policy. JRHH policy states, annual leave is not paid or accrued by Hay House, Inc. Certain management employees, including but not limited to the administrative secretary director's wife and the facilities manager director's son-in-law, received vacation, sick, and excused leave, although no leave was authorized in JRHH personnel policies. Investigators could not determine the total questionable leave taken by employees during the period due to inconsistencies between timesheets and leave balance records. This deficiency directly resulted in certain questionable compensation paid to the director's son-in-law, as noted in the investigative findings of this report, and other questionable leave paid to employees that could not be accurately calculated, and increases the risk of fraud and misappropriation.